Welcome back to Rever's Railway College. I am Rever, and we are starting out here because I wrote Rever's Railway College here. And so I guess that's our college building, even though we have moved on. If you remember from last episode, we have decided that it's important to have a good rail layout as much as it is to have good signaling. I think a lot of people make mistakes in their rail layout that causes them to have signaling problems. So keep that in mind. And hopefully we'll go over an intersection and we'll rebuild it a few times and we'll develop it. And hopefully that'll help. I did get a comment about there are reasons that you may want to use the wooden tracks. Go for it. I have no problems with anyone using wooden tracks if they want their trains to go slow for some reason. Go for it. And then in addition, not be able to upgrade it to electric track later on, but again, if you're having fun, that's all that counts. I am a member of the Having Fun Club. So here we go. So what I did was I built a long straight stretch of track that goes all the way from here, all the way up to here, just to show you that your trains will sort of find. By the way, the signaling on this is poor. So, but you're like, it's not like, oh, I did it perfect. I mean, signals are different distances apart, and just nothing, quote, done all that right. And you'll see that, the trains sort of will follow their own. As long as you don't have too many on a track, it's really just not that critical. It's when you try to put too many trains or many trains. I don't want to say too many, but when you start getting a lot of traffic that you start having problems. And what these trains are going to do, just so you know, is there should be a spot where you're going to see trains potentially stop each other, especially if we started putting more, like here. This guy stopped in the middle of the track because the other guy, let's see, from this signal here, there's no other signal all the way up to here. So this guy was still in this section and it slowed this guy down, which can be a good thing because then they might not stop coming up to the next one. Let's say, of course, he'll probably stop for fuel. But see, will this blue train clear the signal before this guy does? Or will this guy end up stopping? Now, part of the problem is if your trains are different speeds, see, those are pretty, see how he's got a green because this is the signal right under the cursor there. I know it's hard to see. So that guy never stopped. The biggest gap was right here. So see what happens to this guy. I'm assuming he's not refueling. No. He's waiting for this guy to cover this big gap. And so that's the kind of thing that you sort of want to avoid, is this guy sitting here at this station and this guy is just holding him up, right? Now the problem is if you just put a signal in the wrong place, this guy will pull up 20 feet, or meters, sorry, and just stop. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that this gap here, the first gap, is the biggest. Now we do have a signal right here coming out of here. Sometimes it's a lot easier if I just leave this open. So what I want to do is if we were to zoom, I'm going to zoom out. I use the zoom out as a decent way of measuring. So this next signal is all the way over here. We'll remember it because it's like by there. So let me just zoom out until I can see more or less both signals. I know this is going to be really hard on YouTube, and it's certainly if you're on your phone. So here's the next signal. There's no signal in between here and here. Now what I want to do, this guy's going to see, now this guy's held up because this guy has just cleared it now. Now he's going to leave. So we want to get this guy moving. Now he's not moving at all, but we want to try to leave the biggest gap here so that the next time a train comes, this guy, if there is a pause, it's not going to be pausing and like accordioning all the way along. So, we can kind of measure with our eyeballs and say like, this is about the halfway point. Let's go a little bit further than halfway. And I'll click that twice. Oops, no, turn around. I didn't mean to do that to you, buddy. Yeah, spin around. You can go that way. I just signaled you and messed you up. So he'll lose his signal or his question mark by the time he gets off of that segment of track. So does that make sense? So now we've definitely increased it to the point where this guy won't hold the other one up. Now he's going to come to an almost stop, and then he's going to recalculate because he's at the end of the node. And then there he goes. So look for things like that where your trains are sitting there waiting and you're getting those little bottlenecks, and then think about how you can space them out. Like we may, because we don't have that many trains, we may have fixed all of those type issues. See, like all of our trains are moving at this point. And so you don't need to like signal the living heck out of things if you're not going to have that many trains on there. And because the signaling's free, you can always come and fix it. So here we go. So see, now this guy is going to wait until that guy crosses that signal over there. Now he's free. Now it's a lot better than we had it there, and this guy still won't catch up to this one, right? Because we've left enough space. This guy will clear this signal before this guy gets up to speed and gets stopped by this one. See, this one's already green. I know it's really probably hard for you guys to see that, but so we could even, you know, if you wanted to sit there and time it out, you could probably time it a little closer. But the idea would be to try to keep all of your trains moving at the same speed, and keep in mind that you can deliberately cause them to pause at one place for the sake of them being able to buzz this whole distance without stopping. Now you're going to have problems usually around your train stations. We're not loading or unloading anything. And if we were, a lot of times you're going to have problems near these stations. And this is why you really probably want to try to keep your stations off of the main drag, right? So if they're not coming into the station, they can just go and bypass it. But otherwise, I think this would work indefinitely. Now, let's talk about an intersection. We have two more, well, actually three more, and I really probably should have put a loop. Let's do the little loop thing again. And let's go like this. And we'll put, we'll leave that one like that. I find it's, oops, building in the way. What? Oh, I'm clicking on the wrong one. Really? You gonna fight me like that, are you? All right, there we go. And then I probably want to do the same thing over here. Oops, I keep doing that. There. So now if we put more trains on here, now what I want to do, and this is, let's pretend for a minute we just have trains that are going to cross each other. So let's come up to here and we'll buy another very similar. And let's go make sure it's a diesel locomotive. Oh, you know what we need to do too, though? If we're going to do this, we need to put another gas station in. So, I don't know. Let's buy this one, and we'll put a couple box cars on there. Let's open him up. Close this. Let's put another diesel fuel far enough away that it's not going to mess with. Yeah, this would be a good spot. We're going to put it real close to this station, which will probably cause us problems. But that's good. It's not good, but it's good. Yeah, so that should be, let's use the control and rotate. Control, it lets you turn a little bit. I think that's pretty reasonable right there. There we go. Now does this guy have... Yes, has electricity. Does this guy have electricity? Let's just get them some electricity real quick. And because I don't care about the cost, we're just going to lay it out as quick as we can. Okay, so now we have this locomotive, and he can only go this way, so let's send him down to this one. And then this one. Now we want to make sure, well, let's go to that one. I don't even know why I have this one in here, other than to maybe cause ourselves problems in the future. Not sure what I was thinking when I built that. But I want to make sure that we at least have enough signaling to get this guy going. And then we'll signal this all out together, of course. So I just want to put a signal here and a signal there, which will just force this guy when we start him to go right-hand rule. Now again, if you want to do left-hand rule, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. But we have one train and we have two blocks, which wouldn't work very well, right? But that's okay too. So what I want to point out is once we get the problem we're going to have now, see how this guy's stuck all the way up there. Like this would work perfectly well, but the problem is, you know, now we have all these trains crossing. We're going to have a traffic jam right in this area. So the way to fix this will be to do a chain signal in, always a chain signal in, chain signal in, chain signal in, chain signal in. Now notice this would work as well, right? Because the problem's going to be though that it won't release. See, this block is not really a block, right? Because it's including other chunks of the whole system. You're going to have like a feedback loop through here. So you always want to do a regular signal back out. Let's hit this one while nobody's there. Right, and if what we'll do here, we'll let them... See, now all of that's fine, except for this guy is going to need to clear that signal up here. Because, see, we're making what I would call an intersection block. See, now that's green. As soon as there's a train in that block, then it won't let any other train, but it lets everybody else pull up to here and then get going. And really, if you only had this situation, I really don't see this being a big particular problem, right? You're going to have some slownesses, and that may irritate certain people more than others. Certainly this is not ideal. Now we're jamming up this one for that one, but it's also a lot cheaper than building a bridge over, right? Now, the thing that this isn't doing for us is letting trains go every which way, right? We only have trains that can cross each other. Let me come over to here. Let's close this for a second. I just want to open him up. And we'll give this guy... We'll buy another one. Let's buy... Yeah, we'll get a diesel one. Let's buy one of those. And then we'll give him some different cargo wagon. How about a red? And then we will... Oops. You know what? Need that open so that I can come here. Click plus. There we go. So now let's start this guy out. So now we have two trains. Now the problem we're going to have is we created another block and but we're going to also be like pretty inefficient with these guys here because there's not really enough signaling at that point, right? But there is enough that they'll keep flowing just fine. But we definitely, you'd probably want more signaling at that point. Now this guy's stopping to get fuel, which is good. And there we go. So we are running back and forth. I mean, this, if you look, you may get upset that a train, now why is this guy? Oh, the same kind of thing. Look, there's a real long stretch there where this guy's now being held up. And so that's where you might want to consider putting in another one. Now, in this case, I'd probably put them, because it's not around a station. Let's keep zooming out till we're seeing both signals. And again, I know that's... So if I put a signal like right in the middle, that'll cut that problem in half. Now, we could do thirds as well, right? But I'm just going to do what I think is about the middle, which is probably right about here. Right? That'll cut down on that problem. And you can kind of keep around and just keep doing that. Like, see, this guy's now keeping moving. He might end up stopping here. No, does he get it? Look, see? Boom, that guy clears, this guy keeps moving. Right? And that's because we put that signal right in the middle. So, you don't need 10 million signals. Now we've got two trains running back and forth. And look, everybody's going. Yeah, we're going to have a little bit of a slowdown here. But if this is all the traffic you planned on, is it really worth all the sweat over this? Now, I would like to talk about... All right, this isn't a proper intersection. This is really just more of a crossing, right? Like this train couldn't get to this station. So what a lot of people tend to want to do, rather than think through where each of their trains is going, yeah, why is that guy getting a red? Oh, because see, this guy was getting a red because his next signal ahead was red because we don't have any signaling up here. So I'm going to put in a signal. Now, I'm going to keep in mind that maybe one day we'll have even longer trains, right? So don't forget that your trains may stick out the end of the station here. So if you're going to put signaling in, you can be real close, right, when they're coming, because they're going to stop here. But then if he's a long train, he's going to stick out this way. All right, so leave some little bit of extra, enough for your longest train. Now same here, like see, we can put this guy close because, you know, like the train's going to stop in this area of the station, not hang out the front, if that makes sense. The back end of the train will hang out. So you tend to want to just make sure you have that covered. Now these stations are pretty long for a lot of the trains, but not all of them. And I'm using all of these stations. If you start using these fuel unloadings, they're quite a bit shorter, and the fuel trains are very long, so keep that in mind that they may stick out the end. There we go. So we'll probably have the same issue here, right? So we could always throw in another signal, like say here. I don't really want a chain signal there. Right, just to clear this. See how this guy turns green when this train gets out of there? It's not waiting quite as long. And then as far as coming in, I don't know, I'd probably put one here. You know, you don't need to go nuts. And then again, this train's coming in this way. We'll leave a little bit of extra room on the tail end. And then maybe just to keep things flowing well, like here. And then again, a little extra room on the tail end, just in case you had a longer train. And then we can get rid of these two extra nodes, because, oh, no, we can't. Oh, look, that's, can I just build this over top? No. This is the slow track. I must have hit the wrong button. That's whatever. Okay, so there we go. So we have trains. Now, we're going to put 4 more trains on here that can go from any which direction. And I just want to, for now, let's see, is that not long enough? Let's get our wireframe out so we can count 3.5, right? So we want to come about 3.5 off of here. It's going to be in this ballpark. That'll be enough anyway. All right, and then this will go like this. A little bit funny looking, but that's all right. You could spend more time when you're not making a YouTube tutorial. Right, there we go. And then this guy. All right, so now the problem that we have is this intersection's really not going to be long enough for very long trains. So we almost have to treat this whole thing as its own block. So what I want to do is, here, let's pause time when that train gets out of here, just so I don't cause havoc with them, is effectively, I just want to move, like the signaling is no different, right? Now these trains can't go every which way at this point, which is another problem, but we'll get into that in a second. So this is going to be a regular signal out, right? Same thing, we're just expanding this. Regular signal out. Regular signal out. And then we'll do the same thing with chains, except for in. Chain in. Chain in. Chain in. And then we'll delete all of these. Now the problem that we have with this setup is really twofold. When you think about it, trains can't go any which way they want, because if a train is coming from here, let's turn off that wireframe, it's not going to be able to get over to here, right? So what you really want to do is then, oops, yeah, let's, crossing not allowed. Yeah, this is another problem. Because these two are in the same exact spot, it's assuming that I want to cross over this track. So what I would need to do is start this one at a different location, and it may or may not let me. No, it's too sharp. I need to get rid of this and this for a second. And if I start here, see, it's going to let me. All right, because it's not it's just a goofiness. Say crossing not allowed. And that's because these two are even. So, yeah, at this point, it's letting me get away with that. Just crash the game. See that? Because it really didn't want to do that. I'll be right back. Okay, well, it set us back a little bit, but that's okay. I think you guys got the idea of what that intersection would look like, at least to some extent. So now let's design it where we can get these off of here. We got these trains, I think, far enough out of the way. And I'm going to put this wireframe on so I can go about 1, 2, 3.5. So we could go get this in here. Oops, you know what I want to do? I actually want to start with this one. Yep, semaphore signals in the way. Yeah, let's get rid of all of these. Let's see, can I get more? Oh, you know what? There's a train on that track, isn't there? I just want to get rid of... These nodes will mess you up. See, there's a train on that section of track, so it won't let me reset. So let's see, can we get away with... Ooh, so each time you put one of these down, you create a node. Now watch this. Now we can get rid of it. And that way it's just clean. It won't be cleaner, so it won't be... So what I want to do is I want to come from here. These nodes just won't tend to get in my way as much. And then I'll do this one. Ah, turn too sharp, huh? Okay, let's see. Can we get rid of this one real quick? Try it again with the new... See what I mean about that node getting in your way? Now the other thing is, if we ever want to get rid of that node, now's the time to do it. See? Because if I had put this track in, it's not going to let you place a signal that close. So now the problem we have is, if we just try to do the same thing over here, we're going to get that no crossing or crossing not allowed. So you really need to, like, say, come from back here and do the same thing. Right? And same thing over here. We'll come from, like, here and go there. So this is what I would call what you would, like, the most basic... Yeah, say it's... quite liking what I was trying to do there. And then this one, go a little extra far. I don't really like that so much. Let's get rid of... We can make it look nicer, even for our tutorial. So I will come up to here and just go to there, and then to here. And it just looks a little better. All right, so let's hit play. All right, and then we'll pause it. So there we go. So this would be what I would call like a fairly, if a little lopsided interchange. Now the problem with this is, it's very similar to the one where we just had the trains crossing, except for now we can get trains going every which way but loose. But we're going to have to signal this the same exact way, right? And it's always the same exact rule pretty much. Like signal in, I mean chain in, chain in, chain in. Oh, no, that's... There you go. It wants to click towards the node, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't necessarily, which is fine. You sort of want that a lot of the time. Like, but it can be a little annoying. There you go. So really, when you think about it, let's get rid of this one because it's silly close. So there we go. So this should work just like that. The problem being, like, this is the same signaling we had on just the crossing, right? So there we go. So let's play it and just watch what happens while we talk about the next options. So now the problem with this is that these are all really close so that we can't actually get it. Like if we tried to signal, like the other option you have is to try to make each one of these junctions its own separate signaling. All right? And this is where people try to do like roundabouts. Like the idea would be that a train could be sitting in this section of track and not interfere with a train going this way, because it's signaled separately at each one of these four things. But this should work okay. But see, you have this problem with this game in particular where, you know, this guy was going the other way. There's no reason, but he was in there was a train in this block. So you can imagine we just made this block a lot bigger. Before it was only like this big. Now it's this big, so you're going to get that much more of a slowdown. So what is your option? Your option is to make this intersection pretty massive. Now by massive, I mean we want to make sure that none of the blocks are bigger than or are smaller than the smallest or the biggest train, right? So what we could do, and I'm just going to do this on the fly. Let's get rid of this signal just because it's in my way. And it didn't get rid of that node because of this. So like if we did something, this is a little bit of an exaggeration in a sense. But if I were to come and do something like this, then I should be able to parallel that guy pretty well. No, it doesn't want to. All right, and then we could do like the same thing over here. We'll start it off from a different place so we don't get that crossing thing. I probably should stop time at some point here. All right, we're just going to keep going around doing that. Go. And we'll turn this one in. You can tell I'm not really taking too much time to do this too neatly, but oops, crossing not allowed. Really? Because it's turn red for me then. There we go. It should be okay. All right, so now we got it all jammed up because we're feeding back on ourselves through this mess. So what I want to do is let's go ahead and put in our same signaling that we had before and show that this will work. It's a little bit, we'll have to get rid of some things. So again, this is just like a massive version of the last one. And that can even just stay. It's good enough for demonstration purposes. Right, we're doing all this on the fly even. So now let's get rid of all of these signals. I'm going to get rid of this one first, and let's let this train get out of here. Far enough, at least they won't hit each other. And there we go. So now let me come in here, and we're going to get rid of all of this mess because this would have been our smaller version of the intersection. Kind of carefully delete what I want and not what I don't. And this will just let us... Yeah, this one, can we go? Yep. Good. Let's see. Can we get away with this? Yep. Nope. I missed. There. Now, why are we all question marked? They're question marked because they got held up too long, but they should clear out. Let's get rid of our wireframe. So now we have this massive intersection, and it's acting just like the old one, right? Like it's, but the advantage to this is that we can treat each one of these at this point as its own intersection. Now this may not be a long enough stretch, but we do have some pretty short trains. So what we can then do is, as close as we can get it, we can do, this is an in, right? That's an in. Out. Oh. This is an out. Kind of missed my in there, didn't I? Right, so we treat this as its own separate block, and we could go around doing the same thing. Any of the ins. this will be an in. And then we'll do the outs. Right there. See, and that lets that train at least get into this portion. And this should work out pretty well. And this is where they really are saying, like when they talk about, this is an out. When they talk about, oops, like your train shouldn't be longer than a block. This is, or shorter than, your train shouldn't be longer than the shortest block. This is where this whole thing will fall apart if one of these trains was longer. Right, so all the time in is chain signal, out is regular. Right, in. Yeah, this will be the in. Out. 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 Now the only other issue we'll have is that this is sort of a huge block, right? But then we can kind of go, we could go back to just what we had before. Out. Out. Now this could also be a bridge, right? If you left enough space, you could put a bridge in here just to have them bypass each other. That's not the right way. Let's do that. We didn't have enough outs. Chain in. All right. So there we go. So we should flow pretty well with this. This is not ideal, but when you think about it, it's not a roundabout in the sense that you don't have a big circle here. The idea with the circle is that you would get rid of these crossing tracks, right? But in order to do that, we would have to connect this up to here, right? So that trains would always go around one way or the other. Then the other thing you want to think about there is the fact that you have trains going in two different directions. So it's going to be, you're going to have to force them around the loop in the same direction. Let's see, this should work out pretty well. You know, you're going to have to see, like, but this guy will clear there. This guy, yep, he had to stop for him. But in the meantime, this guy keeps going. And, you know, this will cause some traffic, but this is a really good intersection. It's going to be definitely more efficient than the short one, but you've also built, you know, it's taking up some real estate now compared to the old one. Right, so let me pause it now and attempt to build a proper roundabout. Like, and I want to pause it because I need to delete all this stuff up, and we can talk about what the roundabout will do. Now, keep in mind too, if you want to make this slightly more efficient, I'm pretty sure we'd have the distance one way or the other. You could put a railroad bridge in right here, and then these two would just, you wouldn't have this potential stoppage. But again, in my opinion, unless you really expect this to be a very, very busy intersection, this will work pretty darn well. I mean, things will flow through here without a huge amount of trouble. So let me, like I said, let me pause the video and I will come right back and we'll take a look at a roundabout. And I think you guys get the idea with always in, you know, chain in, regular out, chain in, regular out. Now, why is this guy waiting? This guy's waiting because this guy hasn't cleared this signal right here. He was still in this block. And because that's a chain signal, he stopped him from getting in here, which would have been good if this guy had gotten there first, right? Like, you know, like they're not going to get stuck in any of these intersections, which is as important as anything else, is not having jam ups. It's one thing to have traffic. It's another thing to have things grind to a halt. And this should work very well for that. So let me build the roundabout, and what that'll mean is I'm going to get rid of these inner tracks here. So I will be right back in a second. There we go. We have a roundabout. Now what I did very deliberately was just took our tracks that we had before minutes ago, and I just connected them all up with little connections around here. Now I made this as tight as we possibly could so to leave as much room, because remember, we can only signal in between these blocks, and the difference may be getting a longer train or not. So you might have to make your roundabout even bigger than this and maybe even more round. But what I also wanted to show you is I was having a problem over here, or else I might have even deleted that inner part, but I want to make this as tight as possible. But notice how it thinks I want to make a partner track to this one. So it's not really connecting that well. So what I want to do is come over here and just delete. We don't need this inner circle. It was more for demonstration purposes. And then I also want to get rid of these two nodes. That way they just don't interfere. Now if I try to come too tight, it's going to say too tight, right? And you can almost tell how far you need to move with a little experience. So what I'm going to do is just move a little further back than I was, right? See, still not quite there. So let's go a little bit back further again. There you go. So that's probably about the tight as you're going to make that. Let me just hit play pause real quick so it's all completed. And there we go. There is a roundabout. So I just wanted to show you, we just converted, in a way, our old one to this roundabout. Now let's just get rid of all of this. Yeah, look, we can go way around the circle. All right. So now we need to signal this up. So how do we do that? Well, pretty much the same way. Except for now, we have like a little bit different intersections, right? So we have to kind of consider this as an intersection here. So let's do, we're going to have a chain in, right? Always chain in. And we can come like right up to here, wherever that's green, chain in, right? And then they're always going to be coming this way. So we only have two options for this. And then we'll do signal out and signal out. Let's keep going with that whole thing. I think I'll go around and do all my signals out first, and then this will be a signal out here, and then signal out, signal out. Now I'm not a huge fan of the roundabout, but it certainly is not a bad thing to do. Now this, we got a lot going on there. Let's finish getting our signals in. Right, so if they're coming that way, if they're coming this way, or they can come in this way. Or they can come in this way or that way. So we should be fully signaled. Now there's a lot going on here, and this is sort of a different issue and problem potentially that you may run into. So in other words, if you have, what I would say is don't blame it on the intersection if you don't have a place for people to go. So in other words, if we get so much traffic and trains stopping here, then your problem isn't that your intersection's poorly designed. It means you don't have enough space to allow for this to happen. Like you might want to, especially say you had a train station like right here. Well, if trains are backing up into here, then your problem is your traffic here, not your intersection. So let's go ahead and hit play. Now I'm going to probably end this episode, and we'll have another one. So if you guys have any questions or comments, but I just want to warn you that it's getting long enough for one of these tutorial episodes. Plus I need to get other things done. So if you look, the benefit to this is that you don't ever have trains crossing. Now it doesn't mean they're not going to wait for each other at times. They certainly may. And I did want to point out something else. Yeah, this is, which number is this? This is 5 and 7. I want you to notice, yeah, see that this isn't perfect, but then as soon as this guy clears here, this guy should be able to get into the circle. And we maybe before we end, we'll ramp up the amount of traffic. But see, this guy should be able to get in while this guy's moving out. Now notice though that this guy came from that direction. Let's see what they do and make sure they make the right choices. Because sometimes I've noticed he may go down here and loop around as opposed to going the short way. But there you go. Now the problem we had there is that this guy was red because this guy was still in here. Right? So, but there we go. So we're going pretty well. Now, something else to make sure everybody knows is that I noticed this. This is just something good to know. We can add a new stop, right? Well, you can do waypoints. Notice all of these get highlighted now. So if we want to make sure this guy doesn't go up this way, we could give him, here, he's going to 7 from 5. We could say, I want you to go to that waypoint and this waypoint. Notice that. Again, I don't know that that's going to change anything, but at the same time, yeah, let's see, he does go the right way in this case. So let's go ahead and buy 4 more trains and just set them on different 3, 4, right? Cargo wagons. We'll give this guy some hoppers. And we'll give this guy some refrigerated. Yeah, I guess we should. Maybe let's send these guys out on a route first. Right, so let's open these 2. And we'll just get these guys going every which way. I picked 4 because that should say, all right, I want you. Station 7. I want you to go from. You can't go to that station first. So let's just have him go to this station first, just because I didn't put enough track there. Yeah, so we'll have you go out to here, and then come to this one. To go ahead and start. First stop is unreachable. Why is the first stop unreachable? That's this one. Why would that stop be unreachable? That's not unreachable. Let's see. What is this one? Yeah, it's not. Did I do something dumb with signaling? Could be that there's something dumb with signaling. Yeah, let's close that and investigate. This is good investigatory practice, right? Let's close this, and I'd like to open this so that we can see. Let's make sure it's saying, that's all. Yeah, why are you saying you can't go there? Let's delete this track here, because that could be confusing him. First stop is unreachable. Okay. Well, why don't we send you out to this stop? Yeah. Oh, did I buy electric locomotives? Oh, geez. Okay. Sorry, guys. Let's sell all of our electrical locomotives. Yeah, that also leads to the point that, yeah, so let's come in here and do diesel locomotives. We might need another fuel station depending on how we send these guys. So let's, yeah, diesel locomotives. We already did some of those, one of those. How about one of those, one of those? Yeah, let's get these guys out of here so we can. All right, so now your first stop shouldn't be unreachable. You're going to go up to here. Then you're going to go there and start. Yep, and that will bring him past the fuel station at some point in his career. And then we'll do, yeah, see, if we do it down to here, yeah, we've got plenty of trains going back and forth there. No, we have a fuel station here. So as long as we don't do like here to here, we should be okay. So let's get this guy to go from here to here. Right, and then we'll open this back up. Buy some more locomotive cars. Let's get some passenger wagons. Why not? I don't know what'll happen when we try to send passenger wagons to the cargo. And we'll do some box cars for livestock. And we'll say that's a pretty long train right there. And it is relatively proportional, right? Like the length that you see in here is going to be proportional to what it is in the game. So we'll... Not suitable. Okay. Yeah, let's go back to here then. And yeah, sell. I don't need to get into a whole thing about passengers at this point. And let's purchase. This time we'll get, I don't know, let's get some oil tanks. They're kind of long too. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right, so I want you to go from here. Yeah, we'll add another one on. Oh, you know what? He may not be able to get there, can he? Now, he'll go around like a goofy way, and then he'll find his way to it, because he can loop. And then let's just have, I don't know, another one from here to here. Yeah, so let's see how our little intersection does now that we jammed it all up. Or not jammed it up, but have a lot more people. So, as you can see, we have a lot of train waiting. This is not the perfect solution, and I've seen some... It's just... You know, like if you look at our big train jam up that we have back over here, waiting for all of this to happen. Look at that. So this is... I'm not sure in some ways how much better off you are with all of this. You know, like, I think you would be better off saying, well, I have trains that need to go from here to here. Maybe I should just consider a separate track that goes over to this side, right? You know, now we're getting quite a few. Now, it could have been because I dumped those 4 in here, but... Yeah, now why are you... Oh, are you fueling? Okay, that's... So part of the problem is I think these new trains are coming out and fueling, too. So it's probably not helping the whole works at that point. But there you go. That would be the idea of a roundabout. And, you know, I think you could do any one of the designs I went over with the intersection. I think you could probably do a little better than I did, but I hope I showed that no matter what you're doing, it's always chain in, regular out. You know, there's problems like this. You could talk about, you know, getting people out of this intersection. So let's take a look at doing that real quick. So again, I wanted to go at least the length of my longest train here, but if we did something like this, that would at least let them get out of the intersection. This one's going to be tight, and say that could cause problems when they come into this one. But then this one, you know, we might just want to put another one here just to make sure they can get out of there relatively quickly. Again, might be a problem here. But we can put a signal this way to make sure they can at least get out of this intersection before they get into a jam-up.